Okay, let's talk about Steve Spagnuolo. I find this interesting. So, the question I'm going to ask in this video is, does Steve Spagnuolo deserve criticism in the Super Bowl? And a lot of times what I've done when I've done these kind of videos has more or less been like, listen, you can try to find some things he could have done a little bit better, or this coach could have done a little bit better, but ultimately at the end of the day, when the talent is just playing on such different playing fields like it was in this game, there's only so much you can do when nothing is working. But I do actually think there are some things that, in hindsight, Spagnuolo probably should have done that he didn't do in this game. So let's get into it. Starting off with the play you see on your screen, Devonta Smith has a one-on-one matchup, and it's worth mentioning, 27-0. The Chiefs are convinced this is going to be a running play, but still, it's more about the player who is covering Smith on this play. It's Jalen Watson. Hurts is going to take the snap. He runs a play action, looks over in Smith's direction, fires in Smith's direction, and as of right now, this is wide open. And there's really no getting around it. Jalen Watson was having a rough game out there. The thing about him was he was the number 3 corner for the Chiefs last year. They had L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie, so technically he was number 2 corner on the outside, but McDuffie would often get tougher matchups, so essentially he's now been thrust into being just a pure number 2 corner, with McDuffie being the number 1 guy. Since they decided to trade L'Jarius Sneed, and given how he played in Tennessee this year, it seems like they've won that trade, but that's beside the point. Here you see Hurts makes a nice throw, Watson makes a grab. The issue with Watson is, while he actually has played well this year, he essentially just hasn't played against a great number 2 receiver all season long. It's been one of those weird stats where you look at who the Chiefs played, every team that has a really good number 2 receiver, one of their top 2 receivers was hurt in that game, so then they didn't have to worry about that. But honestly, even when it wasn't Devonta Smith that Watson was covering, this is Jahan Dotson, who is not known for being a superstar, but watch what he does. Watch how on this play, he kind of, it's weird, he kind of stops and then goes, and he just gets way by Watson, gets down at the 1, which, for the Eagles, if they get to the 1-yard line, that's just as good as a touchdown anyway. So the reality is Watson was struggling out there. He just was. Also, going over here, you have a situation where this is Trent McDuffie, your superstar level player, going up one-on-one against A.J. Brown. So, okay, this is something you hope you can win, right? Your number 1 corner on their number 1 receiver. However, as you see, Brown is going to, honestly, this isn't bad coverage. This is just A.J. Brown being A.J. Brown, which is kind of what I thought happened most of the time they were paired against each other, was McDuffie played well and Brown was just A.J. Brown. But to me, this is one of the things that I would say is, I think something I would have liked to see Spagnuolo do a little more of is take McDuffie off of A.J. Brown. He's not covering him anyway, just because A.J. Brown's amazing. Double team A.J. Brown, put Watson on A.J. Brown, and then hope McDuffie can cover Smith, and hope that the double team works enough that you can cover A.J. Brown. Is that a bit of a gamble? Sure. But given the way the first half went, it might have been worth that gamble. Also, some blitzing stuff. I felt like they didn't blitz as much as maybe I would want them to. They did have some blitzes, but it felt like, especially on these obvious passing situations, they didn't do it as much as maybe they should have. This play, it's a 3rd down and 4. They're setting the house right here. And as you see, it works. Jalen Hurts, who had an open receiver, just holds on to the ball for too long and ultimately gets clobbered. The issue with the Chiefs was they had someone offsides. So instead of what should have happened, which was that should have been ruled it shouldn't have been ruled a sack. That was the correct ruling, but they should have gotten the sack, right? If just a player didn't line up offsides, they would have had it. I thought they could have done this more. And in fact, even on the best play defensively of the game for the Chiefs, that's what they did, is they had a 5-man rush, A.J. Brown one-on-one matchup. Okay, if it's A.J. Brown in a one-on-one matchup, well, you know that Hurts is going to throw it in that direction. Hurts takes the snap, but really the Eagles just screw up this assignment, and because of this, Hurts makes a bad throw, which results in an interception. I'm not saying if you blitz every time, you're going to get these types of plays, but it did feel like they had some success here and kind of went away from it a little bit. And then when they did blitz a little bit times, the Eagles were more ready for it as well and were able to pass protect. I think going back to that and also maybe trying putting McDuffie on Devonta Smith and then double teaming A.J. Brown could have been a better strategy, I think. And just to take a moment real quick and say, I am completely saying hindsight is 2020 here. I would not have thought that either. I didn't know what the best strategy was to cover this Eagles team. There probably is no great strategy. They're just too good. Like, they have too many options. If you double team A.J. Brown every play, then that might have opened the door for Saquon Barkley. So, I don't know. It's tough. And also, like, this next play, I mean, they did try other things. Like, a lot of people said, well, why didn't they try and, why did they make such an effort to stop Saquon Barkley? They ran concepts that aren't efforts to stop Saquon Barkley. In fact, a lot of times the stopping Saquon Barkley stuff worked because it set up a 3rd down and 8, an obvious passing situation where they're going to have 2 safeties deep, they're going to play zone coverage, have players drop back, and this is just where, again, the Eagles are so good. You see Devonta Smith. Hurts is going to take the snap, and, I mean, Smith is able to get into that gap in coverage so well. Bolton did what he could to get back, but since he was showing blitz, I still feel it could have gotten back a little bit better. But, again, this is the issue of when you have certain concepts you're good at, other concepts you're not as good at. Sometimes the concepts you're not as good at are the right ones to run, or at least in theory are the right ones to run. But then they just, you're not as good at them, so they don't work out. That's the dilemma, right? So in conclusion, how would I evaluate Steve Spagnuolo's performance in this one? What are my kind of final thoughts? Well, for one thing, let's remind ourselves this wasn't actually a horrible defensive performance because the Eagles, there was a pick 6 in there, so that that wasn't on the Chiefs defense. There was another possession that started already in field goal range, and they held them to a field goal, so that wasn't the Chiefs defensive fault. And then there was one where there was, the Eagles started to drive inside the Chiefs 15. They gave up a touchdown. That's a little bit the Chiefs defense's fault, but not like entirely their fault, right? If we take those points off the board and we take out, in fairness as well, when the Eagles decided to just run out the clock when they put Kenny Pickett in or when they just clearly weren't trying to score anymore, we take those drives out and only talk about the 8 other possessions. The Chiefs gave up 2.88 points per drive, which is on the high side. It is. That's a good amount of points to be scoring if you're the Eagles. The Eagles scored 2.7 points per drive on the year. So it's only a little bit worse than what the Eagles do to teams all year long. So again, underwhelming for sure, especially when the Chiefs defense has been very good. It's been top 10 in that category all season. So definitely underwhelming, but not the maybe disaster that the 40 points would have you suggest, right? The story of this game, despite the 40-22 score, was the Chiefs' offense not being successful. That being said, I mean, I would compare this to last year's Super Bowl, where the Chiefs' offense really struggled for 3 quarters. Now, they only turned the ball over once, and that one was still didn't give the 49ers the ball in field goal range, and they punted and didn't score on that interception. But still, the Chiefs really struggled to be able to move the ball through 3 quarters, but so did the 49ers, because the Chiefs defense kept them in the game. They were only down 10, midway through the 3rd quarter, and then finally the Chiefs offense was able to wake up. Here, that wasn't able to happen. So essentially, I mean, I think it's fair to say they probably needed their defense to keep them in this game, and that just wasn't able to happen. So you can still put some blame on them. For Spagnuolo, though, like, my overall point on this is like, okay, when your number 1 corner is losing to their number 1 receiver, when your number 2 corner is losing to their number 4 receiver, you're stopping the run effectively, but you're getting these 3rd down and 8s, but you're not being able to cover no matter what coverage you run. You do zone coverage, that's not working. There is only so much you can do. I do wonder why they never did the old Bill Belichick strategy of put your number 2 corner on their number 1 receiver, double the number 1 receiver, and then put your number 1 corner on their number 2 receiver. Feels like that's a strategy they should have tried to implement, and I don't fully get why they didn't. Again, maybe it would have made a difference, maybe it wouldn't have, but ultimately, like, I'm sure Spagnuolo had his reasons, and he's someone who's earned the benefit of the doubt. So, as a whole, I'm not going to crush Spagnuolo for this performance. It is what it is. This wasn't a game not a feather in his cap. That's fair to say, but I don't look at this and say, well, that's going to hurt his legacy. No, he's still one of the best defensive coordinators of all time. He's won, 4 Super Bowls. Everyone thinks he won 2 with the Giants. Only won 1 with the Giants, but now he's won 3 with the Chiefs. One of the best of all time. Maybe not his perfect day, but also, what are you going to do? That's kind of how I think. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from ya. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.